Are you unhappy? Would you like to be happy? Would you say you're in the pursuit of happiness, or maybe that's your ultimate goal, just to be happy? Well, you're in luck because today's episode, we're going to be talking about why happiness is for suckers. That's right. I'm
Oh,
talking to you. This is the Existential Stoic podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. What's going on, Dan?
what's up, Brady?
Yeah. So we were talking about doing an episode on happiness and anxiety, and happiness is something that a lot of people want. Would you say you're happy all the time, Danny?
No, but you know
Yeah.
what? Yeah, I'm not. And the more I've thought about that, the more I think it's just not like I don't know if it's even the right thing to even focus on. Like I think we've been co-opted by a stupid like fantasy that doesn't really work. Because I go back to all like the philosophy I've read and like all these ethicists, ancient theories, they all talk about happiness, but it's really different from what we mean. It's really like about being a good person. It's really about living like a good life. All these things that take time, and it's about being able to deal with life better, handle the ups and downs, because none of them think that life is going to be static, like just joy forever. That's ridiculous, right? Like we can definitely make it better and hopefully get closer to that, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be that. And I think we have a very weird notion of happiness that just doesn't work.
Yeah, because we're sold this idea that in order to have a good life, you need to be happy all the time. And so not true. Like if you
No.
look at anything, like let's say we look at like the everybody knows what to do to lose weight. You move more, you eat less. Okay? Pretty simple. Everybody knows that. Nobody does it because it's painful. But like
Yeah.
if you want to live a healthy life, for most people, they might need to lose a little bit of weight, especially in America where like 60% of the population is obese. So does moving more and eating less make you happy? No. So wait, to have a good life, to lose weight, to have a healthy body, I need to be not happy. How am I supposed to do that? And people get caught in this thing where they're like, I'm supposed to be happy all the time. Let me post to Instagram and all this stuff because I'm so happy working out at the gym. And it's like, no, a lot of the stuff you need to do for your betterment sucks.
It's hard. It's going to be
Yeah.
hard. That's the fact. I mean, the reality, it's going to be really hard to start. It's going to be hard to do consistently over time. It can get easier. That's true. It does get, and sometimes it can be pleasant. There are chances, but like most of the time it's going to be difficult and stuff that's going to be challenging because it's for your betterment. That's the problem. And I think, it's funny. I was thinking about it the other day. Like we look at all these commercials and they're always like partying and drinking and doing all this stuff. And it's like, it gives you this image that like life should be like that all the time. And it's like, that's just not life. Like, that's just not like, one, you won't last very long. And two, you won't have the energy to do the stuff you need to do anyway throughout the regular day because you spend all your energy, partying and stuff every night. It's like
Yeah.
very
Well, you
counterproductive.
remember you remember that image that I sent you from that Andrew Huberman video where it was like the pleasure seekers and the pain seekers. So like the
Mhm.
people who seek pleasures in their life, they're like, "Oh, candy, awesome. I want some of that." They get a pleasure. "Oh, porn, awesome. They get a pleasure. Oh, drugs, awesome. They get a pleasure." But their baseline is very low because they're just seeking out pleasures. Whereas people who seek out pains that are good for them, they're like, "Oh, working out, oh, painful," but baseline goes back up high. "Oh, ice bath, terrible. Oh, but baseline goes back up high. Meditation, painful." And it's like the moral of the story is that when you're seeking pleasures, your baseline is going to be lower. But when you're seeking good pains for you, your baseline is going to be higher. But also, the seeking of pleasure isn't the problem. It's the seeking of pleasure without putting in effort.
Yeah.
That's problematic. And I think this is the whole concept of happiness. Like, I'm supposed to be happy all the time just because. And
Yeah,
it's like,
doing nothing. Yeah.
no, you're not. You're probably supposed to be miserable so that you can motivate yourself to do stuff that's good for you.
And then you'll feel better, right? And like the funny thing is too, it's like you think about like our whole system is set up to like favor doing the least amount possible. Like, you have a problem, you go to the doctors, you get a pill. Instead of like, no matter what kind of doctor you're seeing, whether it's mental health, physical health, whatever, like instead of actually like, talking about what can I do to address this without any kind of chemicals, what might I need to change in my life? Instead, they just say take this because taking this is way easier than doing all this list of things,
And it's a lot
and
more profitable for the drug dealers.
yes, exactly.
I mean, the pharmaceutical companies.
Whatever, same thing.
Yeah.
But it's the truth, right? It's like, and it's just like with phones, like, right, you're bored, go scroll social media, go do this because it's a very passive activity. It involves sitting, being comfortable, whatever, and distracting yourself. And I think this is like the fundamental problem with our notion of happiness is like instead of seeking out ways to improve the situation or improve things, we look for ways to distract ourselves and avoid things because then
I
we'll
like
feel
what you
comfortable.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like what you just said it again twice. Feeling comfortable. Being not being
Mhm.
happy is uncomfortable. It's a feeling you want to get rid of immediately. Like it's kind of for me, it's like loneliness. It's one of those things where if I don't recognize that's what I'm feeling, I just want to get rid of it as soon as possible. And when I do recognize that it's there, I can be like, oh, this is uncomfortable. Why is this coming up? What does this potentially mean? What should I be doing with my life? As opposed to just like, how do I get rid of this as soon as possible?
Yeah. And it's funny. That's what I've been trying to do more. Because I mean, we talk about it all the time. We're both susceptible to this too. Everybody is. I think like, you can't help it, especially like with the society we're in and all. I've been trying to just sit with it more. I think that's helpful. It helps you one, like figure out where it's coming from, why. And it also helps you realize that like sometimes you're just not gonna feel good. Like it's okay. Like there's days where you just don't feel good and that's fine. And you still can work around it or you can still do things beyond it,
And I
or in
mean,
spite of
there's
it.
sometimes, yeah, there's sometimes even weeks or months where you just don't feel good. And you know what? It's crazy because in those moments, I know they suck. But looking back on them, I can be like, that was there because I need to make some pretty serious changes in my life.
Dude, for whatever reason, this spring, for like the last 2 months, my allergies have made my baseline like drop so far. It's been terrible. Like my
Hmm.
energy has like plummeted. I don't feel good. My eyes are itchy. Even taking the medicine, and the medicine makes me even more tired, so I can't take it during the day because it's even worse. So it's like, but I think everything we've done has really helped me because I've been able to manage through it. And like, yes, granted, like it's things could be better and that's fine, but I also know it'll pass. It's not forever. And so that's the other thing to keep in mind, I think. But before I would have been like, this sucks. I gotta immediately address this and get rid of this. How can I get rid of this? What do I have to do to get rid of this feeling? And now it's like, okay, it's not great, but I can deal with it and move
Hmm.
on, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's these challenging situations in life are generally meant to make something more of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, they're meant to be like ways to find out how we can overcome ourselves, how we can better ourselves, how we can improve. It's funny. I was thinking like when Aristotle and Plato talk about like happiness and the good life. One of the things I think it's Aristotle says, but like basically what he implies is like we need to be good because then we're more equipped to weather the ups and downs of life. And I always think of that as like if you think life's always going to be like a roller coaster, right? But if I always seek just pleasure, I'm gonna avoid all those downs as much as possible and never deal with anything. Even big events like somebody dies, I'm not going to deal with the grief. I'm going to find ways to deny it and hide from it and feel comfortable, right? But if I work on myself and I have more balance and like I'm more centered, I'll be able to deal with these ups and downs healthily and the emotions that come with them. And then yes, while I'll still have down moments, I won't always feel good. I'll be way better at like living my life and living my life fully in the full extent of what that means.
Yeah. Zig Ziglar talks about that in See You at the Top, where he says, most people look for this motivation and the self-help stuff when they're feeling really down, when they're like grasping for straws. And sure, it can be helpful at those times, but that's not the best time to do it because that's when like you're trying anything and who knows if you're trying the right thing. But he says the
Yeah.
best time for it is really when you're doing well because that can help kind of emphasize the good parts. You can take even better parts from it. You can get stronger. And like that's one of the things that I enjoy about doing this with you is every week
Oh yeah.
we remind each other how to live a good life. And it's like and it's
And it's
it's
just
it's
enough to get through the
comical.
next week.
It's comical because we struggle so much through the week. Like we're literally doing this every week for years now. And still through the week we struggle with stuff. And I go back and I listen to our old episodes and I'm like, what the heck? We already knew how to deal with this. How come I'm struggling with it? And it's like, even though we have the information, having it at our fingertips when we need it, that's the skill.
Well, that's what's crazy, right? It's like no matter how much you talk about it and like no matter how much you study it, in the moment, it's like your mind goes blank. And it takes so much effort to remind yourself of all these things, to catch it, even to be mindful of what's going on so that you utilize the right tools in order to address it. It's so funny. But yeah, I think you're right. Like, dude, this has been so helpful because it's like it's a reminder every week that we know we have these skills. We these problems are human problems. It's fine. And I think just in that, it's helped me deal with just problems in general because I look at them differently. They're not something you have to run away from. They're not something you have to hide from. You can kind of sit with them more because it's okay. It's just life, you know?
Hmm.
It's not like it has to be grand all the time or great all the time. And I think we're told this story that's so messed up and just skews our whole perception of what our life should be like or the expectation for life that like there's no way to meet it. So you're always depressed or you're always upset or you're always down.
Hmm. Yeah, one thing that I got this week. So I told you a while ago I've been reading through the Bible. I finally made it to the New Testament. Turns out
Oh,
the Old Testament is like 75% of the Bible. Who would have
yeah, it's
known?
very long. Yeah, the New
But
Testament's
like
like a it's like an add-on.
it's funny because like the Old Testament was a bunch of stories that I knew, and then afterwards it's just God being really angry with humanity for a long time. Just
Yeah.
but anyways, the New Testament, one thing that I got from there was the saying, I seek mercy, not sacrifice. And aside from like Uncle Jesse in Step by no, what was that show? I don't know. Full House,
Oh, Full
have
House.
mercy. I
Yeah,
was like, I
Jesse
was
the
like, what the heck
Ripper's.
does mercy mean? So I looked it up, and it means compassion and forgiveness. And I was like, holy cow, I seek compassion and forgiveness, not sacrifice. And it's like a lot of times, at least I found myself making all these sacrifices for happiness, like doing all this stuff that was an obligation that I didn't want to do because I thought in some way this would uh, equal my happiness in the future somehow. Whereas recently, I've been focusing a lot more on self-compassion. Like, how can I be most kind to myself? And doing those things in those moments, particularly when I'm not feeling it, that's like actual happiness in the moment. Even though I may be suffering, there's happiness present in the moment because I'm doing what's kind for myself.
Oh, I like that too. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Right, because when we're thinking of like, I think you're right. Like a lot of times we think of happiness as like doing what we think is right based on what we've been told. And so a lot of that might be making other people happy, but not really ourselves, right? Or it might be making because it gives them a talking point, it makes them think they did well or whatever, however they're interpreting it. But you're not focusing on what matters to you, right? Or what you need. And so I like that because self-compassion is a great way to like turn that back on you and ask like, what do I need in this moment really? What's the best thing for me? If I'm being compassionate to myself. Because like a lot of times I think when we focus on expectations other people have for us, we end up being really self-critical and really down on ourselves for not meeting these, made up obligations. And then, you feel terrible. And then you look for ways to hide from that or deny it or run away from it. And it's like a vicious cycle. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. It also makes me think too, because like I know like a lot of philosophers also talk about like, the way our avoidance of suffering and pain has gotten so extreme, I think. And like, but yet those are the moments where we also can like learn about ourselves the most and learn what we're capable of. Like we know, like anything new it's gonna be fun for a little bit, but then it's gonna get hard. Because then you get into the real like learning curve, right? Like exercising or something, it feels great at the beginning and then it gets difficult pretty quickly. Learning a new skill set, whatever. And like all that stuff involves suffering and it's difficult and like but that suffering it's just one part of it, right? And we can reinterpret that as like this is a chance to overcome myself to be something better. I just got to get through. This is the roadblock in the way, right? So how do I get around that roadblock or how do I overcome that roadblock? And then I've overcome myself. I've given myself new skills, new things that I can use or utilize in the future. And I think that's a much better way to look at it. Instead of turning away from suffering, turning towards it when it's important to us, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and learning to relax in it. So
Yeah.
like, I mean, we talked earlier about comfort. So suffering is uncomfortable. Like pain is uncomfortable, but learning to relax in it. So for example, ice baths. This is something that I've been doing recently is ice baths. And like the skill that you try and work on is learning to relax as much as possible in a bath that's freezing, like 32
Very hard
degrees
to relax
Fahrenheit.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very hard to relax, very difficult to do. And like you just notice all these tensions creeping up, like, and just trying to relax in there. Or another thing is I've been learning about free diving. And like with that, you're dealing with the urge to breathe. And it's like when that urge to breathe comes up, learning to relax in that. Another uncomfortable thing that you're learning to relax in. But both of these things are pain or suffering that can give you happiness in the future by expanding your tolerance of pain.
But think of the skill set it gives you too, though, right? It's like it might not seem immediately like that it relates, but like, if you're in a typical social situation where you get angry, learning to calm yourself down and relax in that. You won't react emotionally to something. Likewise, if you feel jealousy or something, right? Like you're teaching yourself how to not respond immediately to whatever you're feeling in your body. And that's a great skill set to have because most of us lack that. So we respond immediately. And usually that immediate response is not going to be rational. It's not going to be a good response. It's going to be just a knee-jerk reaction to get away because it's like a fight or flight rather than like an actual healthy, good response for, ourselves. Yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a really good one. Yeah. How long do you sit in those ice baths? Or do you try to?
The longest I've done is 10 minutes. Usually I try and do about 5 minutes. And there are other people who have done it for like 15, 20 minutes
I'm
in the
sure
group
once
that
you,
I
the
go
more you
to.
do it too, it probably gets easier to do too.
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
The
Does it get
is the
easier?
Well, it doesn't get easier, but you get more used to the pain. So,
Okay.
like I still remember the first time I ever did it. And I was literally like yelling inside of my body. I was like, get out of here. What are you doing? And like just sitting there. And now like the yelling isn't as loud. Like it's very distinctly uncomfortable, like
Yeah.
exceptionally painful. But I just recognize like, oh, this is that pain. It lasts for about 2 minutes. So I just start counting. And then by the time I get to 120, it's gone, you know? Because by
Yeah.
that point, like all the vasoconstriction happens and there will be waves of discomfort, but it's not as painful. So it's just, learning to deal with the pain. And also like having a different, actually, yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, Danny. Uh, Having a different perspective of the pain because it used to be like the first time I did it, the pain was like, get me out of here. But now I've almost wired that pain to be like, I'm going to be feeling great later today because inevitably every time I go and do that, I feel amazing the rest of the day.
Yeah,
But it's
because you
like,
also get probably a crazy shot of endorphins once you get out of it,
mhm, yeah,
and like,
yeah. And so
yeah.
like it rewires pain from being pain bad to pain just being a signal. Like this is just something and you can interpret it however you want.
Well, what's funny? Like, I always think too, like, most people, if you ask them, like, what were the greatest times in their life, the things they remember most? It's going to be really difficult things they accomplished, right? It's going to be like, I worked really hard for this paper or whatever that I did that came out really awesome. I ended up doing conferences on it. I overcame like my fear of like talking to people and gave this really good presentation. I was able to do an ice bath thing for the first time. Or it's going to be things that are really
Or the dude was
painful.
the high school quarterback on the football team or was in the military service or like all this stuff that you look back and it was exceptionally difficult at the time.
Yeah, right. Because those are the things we're proud of. We're proud when we show our ability to overcome adversity, difficulties, and also show off like our capabilities. It's not like I'm not gonna look back and be like I sat and watched Netflix for 20 hours and didn't do anything. It's not gonna be like I got high and just did nothing all day. Like that's not gonna be stuff I look back on. It's like, yeah, that was awesome, you know? And I think when you look at that, it's like our greatest accomplishments are always going to be involve a lot of difficulty and adversity and struggle. And so keeping that in mind is a good way to reinterpret it too, I think, and look at it as like this is just a roadblock. It doesn't have to be something I run from. It can be, it's just going to be however I interpret it.
Mm. Yeah, and like you can challenge yourself to live a bold life, try stuff that's difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the
this
other
whole
thing too.
concept,
Oh,
oh,
go ahead, sir.
the whole concept of like failure. I shared that quote with you where it's like you can't fail if you're doing something you love, and it's
Yeah.
like and that. I mean, I kind of knew that on one level, but when I saw that quote, I was like, oh my gosh, that's true. Because there was still this fear about doing stuff that I love. Like, what happens if this stuff gets screwed up? And it's like, it doesn't matter. It's inconsequential because I was doing what I love. It's impossible to fail.
Yeah. I mean, the only way to fail is to give up, right, on something. So if you love it, it's worthwhile. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter what you get out from it. As long as you love doing it, you're getting the value of it every time you do it. It's arbitrary. And I think, it's like, I think Camus like said that too. Like, like life is absurd because like, we can interpret everything good or bad. And so it doesn't matter what kind of experiences you have, just having experiences is good. And so whether they're good or bad, it almost doesn't matter because they all add to our sort of experience of life itself, right? And to our basic enjoyment of life. So I think it's important to keep that in mind too, that the adversity is sometimes the best thing for us. and sometimes the thing we need at the time. Which is also why I think, like, we talked about before, like making big changes. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom because sometimes you have to realize that there's no other way except dealing with the hard things. And once you start, it gets easier and easier to do.
Mm. Yeah. How about the whole concept of happiness as it relates to death? So like we're all gonna die, right?
Yes.
So what does it matter if you were happy?
Yeah.
In 100 years,
Right.
we're not gonna be here. So what does it matter if you're happy today?
Isn't that the weird thing? Like, right? Like, this is the other flip side of it that's odd, right? Like, why should I live a good life if, like, I'm just gonna die anyway? What's it matter? And I think the thing is like, well, this is your life, right? This is it. Whatever you believe about the afterlife, this is your life. Or whatever you believe about what happens, this is your life. Like, frankly, likely I think nothing happens. So this is it. This is my one shot. I gotta do with it what I can. And that means, I can do whatever I want. I can interpret however I want, but like, you know, I don't even know if it's right to think happiness is a goal either. I think that's also a problem because I think you're then striving for some future state instead of living it now. Does that make sense?
Dude, happiness is transient. Like by
Yeah.
definition, it can't last. It's an emotion that's transient. So like trying to make that an end goal is just ridiculous. And also it's
Yeah.
something that's completely out of your control. Like ask yourself this question, how long have you been trying to be happy? And how has that worked for you? Can you actually control it? Like it's completely 100% out of your control. But then if you can redirect your focus into actions that you would be proud of or actions that you know you think would contribute to a good life, and then you can look and be like, hey, I'm doing those. That gives you like a feeling of well-being.
Yeah, maybe well-being or like self-satisfaction or something like that is a better way to look at it, right? Because you're going to be bound to be happy at some points, interpreted like we usually interpret as like an emotional state or something. But like, I don't know, a lot of like philosophers and stuff I admire, like they seem to focus more on like achievements, like, like in the sense of like trying to be a good person, like working on yourself. Yes, you might not hit the goal, like there might not be an end goal, but it's something you continuously strive for. Or like, completing a great, work or something, or like, doing some skill you've always wanted to learn, something like that. These things that like collectively add up to like experiences that you want in your life set or your life experiences. And that's, I think so. Thinking about death, I think is really good because, you can think about like, what would I regret having not done? Would it be like I would regret that I didn't sit on the couch more, or would it be that I regret that I didn't try that new skill that I want to learn, or do that thing that I
Mhm.
just love doing, even though I don't make any money at it, like some hobby or something like. And I think that's where you'll find like, the things that really can contribute to a good life for you.
Hmm. Yeah, what I've found has been helpful for me is as spending the majority of my discretionary time on things that are of interest to me that have meaning for me.
Yeah.
And so like clearly that's going to vary from person to person. And also discretionary time is going to vary from person to person because you may be working an 80-hour work week just to provide for your family. And so maybe you only have 5 minutes a week. But it's like, are you spending that 5 minutes scrolling through Instagram, or are you spending that 5 minutes building a model train railroad that gives you the ultimate
Yeah.
fulfillment? Like that's up to
Yeah.
you. And then also just comparing myself with myself from the past, like forgetting about other people, because there's always going to be people who are doing better than me. There's always going to be people who are doing worse than me. But like comparing me with myself in the past, am I fulfilling my gift better now as opposed to what I was doing previously?
Yeah. Self-comparisons are the absolute best. I think that's helped me probably the most is stop looking outside and look just at my own lifeline because that's real. You see real improvement there. Plus, you have all the data essentially, right? You're not like cherry picking. They have a lot of free time, or they're really good at this one thing. You're not cherry picking those things. Instead, you're looking at the whole life, and then you can make valid assessments, right? You can say, I am in fact doing better now than I was 5 years ago, much better. So it's like, that's a great way to look at it. I think that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Also,
interesting.
another
Uh,
thing that's helpful is like getting rid of these happily ever after things. Like
oh yeah,
I heard someone say the other day, they were like, "Oh, if I just had money, that would solve all of my problems." And it's like, I was thinking about it, I was like, that may solve your problems, but you don't recognize what problems come along with having all that money. So
Mhm.
like you'll just have a brand new set of problems once you have that money. And this concept that like one thing is going to solve it all. I get caught in that trap all the time because I think
Oh
that
yeah.
like there's a happily ever after as opposed to just a waypoint along the way. So yeah, recognizing when you're caught in that trap.
And I think, money's an obvious one because like, yeah, if you don't if most of your stresses are related to money because you don't have enough, that's gonna seem like it's gonna solve all your problems. It's just gonna naturally, most of us, we've all been there, right? Where it seems like that's gonna be the thing that solves everything because that's the immediate thing that I'm struggling with the most right now. And it's like, but once you get it, it's just all the other problems that you haven't dealt with are gonna also come up. So it's like you gotta be able to working on yourself will help no matter what. Yeah, I like spending as much of my free time as I can just on like, yeah, just on like learning new things that are interesting to me and pursuing those because I feel like it adds to my overall life. I feel better about it and it feels good,
Mm-hmm.
and new
Yeah,
experiences.
I've actually been struggling. You know how a lot of people are scared of the fear of failure. Well, there's also the fear of success. So
Yes.
like I've been kind of harboring this fear recently where like I'm starting to spend more of my time and money doing things that I find very valuable. And this is awesome because it's very rewarding. But there's also this part inside of me where it's like, uh-oh, what happened? Like, what happens if I'm not able to do this in the future? What happens if something
Yeah.
goes wrong? What happens if I run out of money? Like, all these things come up, and it's just like, oh, what? But it's like, what happens if you live happily ever after because you're doing the stuff you actually want to do in life, you know?
Yeah.
What
But you know
about the
what's funny that
positive?
it's weird how that comes up though, because like the fear of success, I've noticed that too. Once you start doing what you want to do, it's like the fear switches. So instead of being failure, it becomes success. And that's really odd, I find like that. But we're all like kind of because we're afraid of things changing, right? We're afraid of losing the ability to do what we're doing, of being an imposter. That's always there. But I think the best thing in this situation is just not just focus on the daily, the day to day, not the future. Because you can't predict it and you don't know. And there's no point in worrying about it. Better off
Mm-hmm.
worrying about it now, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what would you say are some routines or techniques or things that contribute greatly to your happiness?
I think routines in general are great. Like having like
Mm-hmm.
I've been really benefited by a morning routine's great. Like so like journaling. I take a walk every morning with my dog. I usually spend the first like hour and a half to 2 hours. I don't do any work. I just do like I take a walk, do some writing, have coffee, stuff like that. And that's been really helpful because it gets me set up for the day really well. Like I feel good about every day. This with you once a week has been awesome. So I count that as routine, and then like I think having routines like to bookend your day too. So at night, like, doing something similar every night is just good, whether it's writing or meditation or whatever. Even if it's just like, even if it's watching a funny show for half an hour with somebody that you love or something, that can be a great routine too. Just a way to end the day in a way that you find enjoyable is good. And I think that just
Mm-hmm.
has helped me immensely because then I'm just better off the rest of the day, I find.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you there. Bookending the day. I'm the same thing, like the first hour and a half of every day. It's doing some meditation, some journaling, uh some activity, and then same thing at night, kind of like winding down before bed, same type of routine. Uh yeah, those are definitely very happy, very helpful for general happiness. And continue continuing to work at cultivating well-being even when you feel good.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
it's
that's
super
a
important.
new that's a new habit for me because I would always I would feel terrible and I'd work really hard to start feeling good and then I'd feel good and I'd just slack off. And then I would just be like going from terrible to terrible, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so now it's like working on maintaining those things that maintain my well-being. So then when I feel terrible, I can just continue doing the things that I'm doing anyways to maintain my well-being and just give it some time to come back.
That's a really good one too, because yeah, one of the things I've been trying to do, I've been doing more and have been keep trying to do more, which is like cultivating my hobbies as much as possible, things I love doing. And it's been great because it's giving me more time to do things that I care about, that are fun, enjoyable, and it makes sure I'm using my time that I have free in like a more constructive way. Learning something new, photography, things like that, going out and doing things like that kind of stuff can be just great. And it's like, but none of it involves sitting on like screens and stuff, you know? And I think that's like the funny thing too. Like I see so many people every time I go out, that's all they do. And it's like you're not engaging in life at all. There's always an intermediary. It's sad.
I'm waiting how long, there was a time when like 3 out of 4 doctors recommended Marlboro,
Yeah.
so like I'm everybody knows the research is there that social media and everything is terrible for you and the news is terrible for you. But I'm waiting. How long is it going to be until it's just commonly accepted that like if you do that, you're destroying your life? Like when is there going to be an anonymous group for social media and for all this other
But
stuff?
you know what kills me too? It's like people watching and they get outraged by like, oh, the homelessness or like, the war in this area, or this and that. And it's like, okay, so you're aware of it. Why don't you go do something in your community to help deal with those things? Instead of spending 3 hours a day looking at the news, why don't you go spend an hour working in a soup kitchen or something? Or like
Yeah.
actively cleaning up something that actually improves your community and actually makes you feel better. And if we
Mhm.
did that, and I think this is the thing that like people forget, like when you look at like these philosophies on like the good life and like they talk about like self-cultivation, it's always doing things to improve yourself and continuing work at it because it's something you have to continue. But you make everything better by doing that. You make your life better, you make yourself better equipped and more balanced to deal with like the struggles. And it's the same with your community, right? If you spend your time improving things, things will improve. If you spend your time
Mhm.
just looking at how bad things are, things will just get worse because
Mhm.
you're not actively contributing.
Yeah.
It's like
Yep. That is a great point. So anything else for happiness?
I'm sure there's more, but yeah, no.
Yeah, it's for suckers.
It
Happiness
is
is
for
for
suckers.
suckers.
It is.
Yeah.
Get a new
But being
definition.
miserable is for suckers too,
Yeah.
you know?
I like
Yeah.
to call I just like to think in terms of I like good life. Good life for me captures it better. It doesn't include that emotional side of it that I think just makes more sense to me. But call it whatever
And
you want.
it allows for bad days.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
how awesome is that to recognize when you have a bad day? And guess what? It's part of being human.
Yeah. And that my life still can be good, even though
Oh,
I had a bad day. That's the distinction.
yeah, true. That
Whereas
is a
by
good one.
definition, I'm not happy if I have a bad day. And I think that's why it's for suckers.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Bingo. Yeah. So there you have it. Why happiness is for suckers and how to pursue the good life. If you did enjoy this, make sure to like, share, subscribe. Check us out on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. This is the Existential Stoic podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. I'll see you later, Danny.
Later, Randy.